Welcome to the Síle Show, where real stories meet raw truth. This is a space for radical self-honesty, for courage, and for conversations that cut through the noise. A place where we talk about the things that really matter, the inner battles, the turning points, and the breakthroughs that change everything. The Síle Show isn't about perfection. It's about possibility. It's about choosing to grow even when it seems like such a stretch. Leveraging adversity as fuel for growth, not a script for suffering. It's about asking better questions, challenging old narratives, and remembering that no matter where you've come from, change is always within reach. Through stories, insights, and soulful conversations, we shine a light on what it means to live a full, awake, and meaningful life. This isn't just a show. We're actually carving out a pathway from limited to limitless thinking, from fixed to growth mindset, one quality conversation at a time. Join us. Let us be your trail angel. I'm your host, Síle Daly, and this is the Síle Show. Onward, fellow journeymen. You excellence. The self-care revolution starts within, and how you treat you changes absolutely everything. You're very welcome to the Síle Show, where today in particular, science meets soul, and self-care gets very personal, because today we're talking about skin. Not necessarily in the way you might be used to hearing about it. We've been sold like a surface story about skin over the years. Skin is a shell, a canvas, something to scrub, to smooth, to perfect perhaps. Skin is much more than that. It's a sensory system. It's a mirror to your inner world, a living reflection of your health, your hormones, your history, and yes, your heart. We now know that your skin has its own microbiome, a delicate ecosystem of bacteria and cells, as alive and as reactive as your gut. We know your mental health affects your skin, not just in how it glows, but in how it protects, reacts, and renews. This is the field of psycho-dermatology, and it's rewriting the script of what self-care really means. So today, we're not just talking about skincare, we're talking about you excellence, your experience of you. Not how you perform for the world, but how you treat yourself. Because how you treat you sets the tone for everything else. You excellence is the new self-care. Not ritual for ritual's sake, but presence, intention, consistency with compassion. This isn't about perfection, it's about permission to be in your skin, to feel at home in it, and to lead from within. And there is no better guest to bring this conversation to life than the one and only Selene Daly. Selene is a leading voice in dermatology, a regular contributor on national radio, and someone who speaks about skin with science-backed warmth and total clarity. She's actually come to us today in Magic Door Studios, straight from the Pat Kenny show, and we're going to go deeper on what your skin is really trying to tell you. Skin is a storyteller. Who knew? Selene is a dermatologist, a speaker, an educator, and a powerful advocate for the whole concept of skin health that goes far beneath the surface. You've just come straight from Pat Kenny.
I have, down the road. So, yes, I've been lucky enough to be on the Pat Kenny show many times. So I have a slot on the Pat Kenny show for the last, trying to scratch my head, I'm thinking 8-9 years now at this stage. I remember the really funny story. The first time I appeared on Pat Kenny, and I was really nervous. I always say yes to a good thing and figure out how to do it after. So I was going on to talk about SunSmart, which is a passionate subject of mine. I stayed the night before. I went up the street into the studio, up to Diggs Lane, and I remember going into the studio and everyone welcomed me. It was wonderful. And I went into the studio with Pat, and I remember sitting down, and it's meeting an icon. It's meeting an icon because for years we all grew up looking at him, listening to him, and he's such a wonderful interviewer. And I wanted to get it right. I remember sitting there and they're doing sound checks, and I could hear this clicking noise. I thought, what is that noise? And it was my knees knocking together with fear.
Stop.
With fear. So I just thought, take a breath, take a deep breath and you'll be fine. And he's such a wonderful person, a wonderful interviewer. So yeah, I love going up doing the Packing Show.
He is. Well, it's a pleasure to have you here, having been there on such a prestigious show. So your background is nursing and dermatology came afterwards, am I right?
That's
the specialism.
Yes. So I suppose I was one of those annoying people that I always knew what I wanted to do. I always knew. I was born in the UK and my mum was a nurse and she ran a huge nursing home in Leicester in England. So at that time, we used to have an apartment on top of the nursing home. It was the size of a small regional hospital, almost in Ireland. So I would have grown up watching my mother nurse and always wanted to be a nurse because I seen how she worked and I seen how she gave such care to people, so kind and caring. And I suppose I was following in her footsteps, literally behind her, watching what she did. So I always knew I wanted to do nursing. If people ask me, why do you want to nurse or why did you want to nurse? I just really like to alleviate human suffering. I feel other people's pain a lot. And I think if you can do something to help somebody, that gives me a huge amount of feedback, positive feedback to myself. So I always knew I wanted to do it. I volunteered when I was younger in nursing homes. I loved caring for people and I loved the whole science of nursing, but I didn't understand the science of nursing until I actually went to college myself to become a nurse. So I trained in Sligo Hospital. It was in between training. So it was 1997. So it was a mix of traditional training along with a diploma model. It was a 3-year model. So we were attending school in the School of Nursing in Sligo Hospital and in St Angela's College as well in Sligo. And Dr. Evan McManus, who was one of my first tutors, and I wasn't the most academic person and I didn't pay a lot of attention all the time, but I can remember Evelyn talking about the holistic care of the person and that she gave the example, if somebody breaks their leg, you just don't treat their leg, you treat that whole person. So if somebody, for example, broke their leg and they're working in a building site, they can't work for 6-10 weeks maybe. Their income is down. They're not going to be able to buy good food. They might develop depression because they can't work. They might have financial issues. They're not going to be able to exercise. They're not going to lose some muscle. And it was the first time somebody had explained to me the holistic care of the patient. So I was bit by the bug big time about the whole nursing science. I always love skin. Always love skin. Everything to do with skincare, both for myself and for patients. So I worked in medical for a while and then got the opportunity then to go and work in dermatology. Did my course in Wales, first of all, a diploma in dermatology nursing, and then I did a master's in dermatology, the science of dermatology in the University of Hertfordshire in the UK. And so, yeah, loved every moment of it. Loved every moment of my nursing career. Loved looking after patients. Just loved hearing people's stories. And loved knowing that I potentially and possibly have made a difference in people's lives. You know, we talk about the fact that, you know, I'd love to earn €1 million a year. Of course, I would love to do that. But I have to say, you know, there is no value, monetary value you can put on knowing that you have walked in the patient's shoes, you've walked beside them and you've helped them in their journey for health and wellness. So yeah, I wouldn't change a thing, would never do anything else but nursing. And now I'm lucky enough, I worked in National Centre for Clinical Audit for a couple of years, working out Dr. Stevens there for 2 years. And now I'm a lecturer. I'm also a nurse educator. So I teach nurses in the Centre for Nursing Midwifery Education in Sligo Leitrim and West Cavan at the moment. So I'm very happy there. I have wonderful colleagues and I'm teaching all kinds of things. So it's just wonderful.
You're amazing. You're an inspiration. Older, not over. It's lovely to keep reinventing, bootstrapping more qualifications and doing what you know brings you a sense of wellness and wholeness, but more particularly because you know the effect it's having on the people around you and the people that you nurse. So you alluded there to the wholeness of the individual that you treat. You don't just look at the skin ailment, you look at the whole person. So we're, I suppose, diving straight in at the level of psycho-dermatology. There. Can you tell us what is psycho-dermatology?
So psycho-dermatology is a relatively new topic. And I suppose going back years ago, we always knew, well, particularly people used to focus on things like, say, psoriasis. And we know that if somebody's living with psoriasis and they have a stressful event, for example, so if they have psoriasis and they are doing the leaving cert or they are doing their driving test, they can have a flare of psoriasis. So we always knew that stress triggered psoriasis. But, you know, kind of kept the medical model of dermatology, you know, that it's a skin disease and you do biopsy, you treat it, or you either cut it out or you give a medication and you treat it. But actually what we do know now is there's an interconnection between the mind and the skin. So it's looking at the connection between the mind and the skin. And the interesting thing about skin is when we were babies, well, actually we were fetuses, tiny little embryos in our mum's tummies, and that the mind or the brain cells and the skin cells develop together in the ectoderm. So they are always connected and they talk to each other every day. And it's something that we don't think about because we do tend to like to categorize things. I do it myself. We like to put things into boxes so we can understand them. And we like to put our skin in one box and our liver in one box and our brain in one box, and we can divide out the organs. When we're in nursing school, for example, we divide it into different sections, and that's so we can learn it. But each and every single organ interplays with each other. But particularly the mind and the skin have this connection like siblings.
Yeah.
So, of course, there's going to be interplay between them. So we do know that the mind can touch the skin and the skin can touch the mind. So I remember hearing a phrase one day, it was excellent. Like, if you've ever touched somebody's skin, you've touched their mind, which you have. So we do know that there are certain skin conditions that can cause depression, anxiety, lower self-esteem. And we do know that there are conditions, psychological conditions, that can actually trigger skin conditions too. So they're very tightly interwoven.
Of course, it's a two-way conversation. And I think 1 in 10 people have acne. Am I right? Is that statistic up to speed?
And there's lots of stats about acne. So we do know about between 90 and 95% of the entire population of human beings have experienced some kind of acne at some point. Acne is the most Googled, tweeted, or X'd now, TikToked skin conditions is talked about because we've all experienced it. Now, you can have a small or minor amount of acne. We've all had that. That's blackheads and whiteheads, open and closed papules and pustules. But, you know, people can have mild acne that they can treat and it goes away. But then they can have moderate to severe acne that causes scarring and causes deep anxiety for people that are experiencing it. There's been an amazing amount of research that's been done on acne. The last large study that I read about it looked at teenagers with acne. So, of course, we know that acne comes when you have presence of hormones. So when we are children, we start, when we're teenagers, we start to have estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. And we do know that hormones trigger more the production of sebum, for example. So sebum is the grease, is the moisture, is the oil within our skin that keeps our skin ticking over. So it's wonderful. But if you get too much of it, it can actually block your pores and then cause acne. So when we're teenagers, we're getting all these new hormones, which is really hard to deal with, as we all know. You get this increase in sebum, then you can get acne. And it can be familial. So if you have somebody with severe acne in your family, then yes, a teenager can develop that too. So they're trying to deal with school, they're trying to deal with life, new hormones, and now they have this skin condition. And we know for many years that people with skin conditions are visible. So if there's something wrong with my liver, my heart, my lungs, you can't see it, Sheila. You walk past me in the street and you would know there's something wrong with me. You walk past me and I've got, very severe acne, it's going to be extremely visible. And it runs very deep. So we tend to live in a society where people will comment on people's skin. So typically you wouldn't comment if somebody was limping, for example. You wouldn't start asking questions. Particularly around acne, people will offer help that's not been asked for, or will have some... I'm from the west of Ireland, so we've got lots of cures for things. We've got lots of things that are unhelpful across the board, but particularly when it comes to skin. So rubbing things on. When we were student nurses, we used to think rubbing alcohol would get rid of the acne. Absolutely do not do that. That doesn't help. It actually makes the thing worse. So we've got lots of misinformation that people are really willing to offer up. We also categorise people with skin conditions with a little bit of mistrust for some reason, and our own brains do that. There was an excellent study that was published in one of the British journals about 3 or 4 years ago now, and it looked at the Disney films and how, the bad characters, or, the baddies in these, they tend to have skin conditions. So things like warts, for example, or distorted, features on your face, and that they were the baddies, but the goodies were the beautiful people, the people that had the perfect hair and this perfect skin and all that. So, again, that's feeding into the narrative that if there's something wrong with your skin, is there something wrong with you, which of course we know is not true. So when we talk about acne, it's really important that if someone's experienced acne, they do go to their GP for treatment. We can treat acne. So acne is typically treated using cleansers and moisturizers that are not oil-based, that won't block your pores, but also there are medications that you can be prescribed for your acne that are very safe and effective. If your GP can't treat your acne, you can be referred to what we tend to say a hospital-based consultant dermatologist. So somebody who is working in practice where they can prescribe safe, effective treatment for you. But it's so imperative that alongside that somebody's mental health is being cared for as well, and that they can talk to somebody or have somebody to talk to you about how they're feeling. And again, going back to we're dealing with the teenage cohort here. And, I've teenagers myself. I know how difficult it is right now to be a teenager. It was difficult back in the 80s and 90s to be a teenager. But now they have Instagram, TikTok, and they are on their phones 24/7. And again, we know that there's a whole raft of misinformation about skin conditions, particularly acne, on these platforms. And we know there's a lot of bullying that goes on. And we know that appearance is particularly important to both males and females now. I mean, the boys are as... how do I say this? Because I'm thinking about my own children. The boys are as concerned about teeth whitening and straightening and their skin and their appearance as the
trips
girls
to the barbers
are. And there are multiple trips to the barbers. The girls in particular, they seem to not want to look different to their friends or their peer group. So if you see a bunch of girls walking down the street, they tend to have the same school bag, they tend to have the same jacket, because they can't appear different. That appears to be something that they're really worried about. So if your skin looks different to everybody else, that can just make you feel really, uneasy about arriving at school or attending community events. So it's really important that if someone has acne, they do go to their GP for treatment. We do know when the acne clears that their mood can increase as well, that the mood can improve. But, it's really important alongside this that people can feel they have a safe space to talk about their skin conditioning as well.
For sure, about their skin condition and about perhaps what precipitates that. So getting that lovely space to chat about emotional things that they're not processing very well for whatever reason.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned that there's a genetic predisposition, but genetics would definitely load the gun, lifestyle would pull the trigger to whatever extent. So a lot of children are engaging, for example, in training more now than they might have done before, and they're taking protein powders and various other supplements. Does that affect their skin?
It does. So if you take on board too much protein in the form of whey powder, for example, it can trigger and make acne 10 times worse, significantly worse. Also, we have to look at our kidney function. So we're talking about the holistic care of everybody. If you load too much protein in your body at any one time, and when I was recently shopping, and of course I have a teenage son who, wants the protein drinks and all the rest of it. Some of these protein drinks can contain 35, 40 grams of protein. And if you're loading that on top of protein you're eating in the form of chicken, beef, and your nutrients, then you can get an overload of protein, and that's going to make your kidneys feel not good, and can cause kidney damage. So be very careful with that too. And again, an awful lot of the supplementations that we take, I did nurse prescribing in 2010, and I had a wonderful professor in RCSI, and the first thing he said was, listen, he goes, be very careful about taking too many vitamins, because when we ingest something, whether it be food, vitamins, medications, they have to be processed, almost like a little factory. So our bodies are like little factories, and we have our liver and our kidneys that are doing this great job for us. But if we overload our systems with too much, at the least of it, it can just be that we have expensive because all we're doing is getting rid of it from our bodies. But also it can build up. Like vitamin D is so important, for example. But I remember during COVID, some poor gentleman in the UK, because he read that vitamin D is very good for combating COVID, and he took an overdose of vitamin D and ended up in hospital, and he was very unwell. So again, you can get too much of a good thing. So it's really important that you're having these conversations with your GP and ask them, do I need to take vitamins? And if I do, what do I need to take? Because sometimes you can spend a huge amount of money on supplementation as well, including collagen powders and including whey drinks that can actually make things like your skin condition worse. But it's just a waste of money as well. So
it is indeed. And also we need fibre. We need to pay attention to fibre as well to feed the gut microbiome. So as you suggest, when we're trying to process these protein powders, etc., just looking down the lens of making sure I get the requisite amount of protein on board, perhaps it's at the expense of fibre. And we need our fibre to feed our gut microbiome, which is hugely connected to our skin microbiome. And I think until recently we didn't even realise quite as much about our skin microbiome as we do literally in the last few years. And it is so important.
Where that connection is. And because if you examine our diets, and this conversation I had this morning with somebody, if you examine our diets, the hilarious thing, well, it's not hilarious, but I say to everybody, we were organic in the 80s in Mayo because we didn't have a choice. We didn't have ultra-processed food because we didn't have money to buy it and it wasn't available to buy. So there was we had the blandest diet ever. It was boiled this and that. And I was telling my friend this morning, I never had Chinese food until I went to Sligo. I mean, it's incredible, when you think about it, because you just didn't get it. You didn't have the money to buy it. You didn't buy it, you didn't eat it, you didn't consume it. And not so much that I suppose people were worried about the ingredients, but it's purely that there wasn't availability. So we were all very organic and very healthy in the 80s when we just couldn't afford to buy food. But now the volume of ultra-processed food that's available in the market is overwhelming, and the amount of ingredients within the food itself as well. And when we look at, say boys, and I would be concerned about the amount of protein and whey protein that they're consuming, but they, again, and talking about the psycho-dermatology aspect, but we're talking about body image and body dysmorphia almost, they are so under pressure to look a certain way. They're so under pressure to gain a certain amount of muscle as well. And that's why they're consuming the whey protein. It's not that they're enjoying it, but they feel that they have to look a certain way. And we have to, I suppose, traditionally we think about the pressure on girls and appearance. And I know I would have felt that myself when I was younger, but we have to look at the pressure on boys as well and their appearance, because it seems to be equal now. So it's very important that we are giving boys that space to talk and that space to express themselves, and talk to them about things like, yes, not too much excessive whey protein, but also not taking any medications or drugs either, trying to build up this muscle to gain this amount of muscle, because that's a very dangerous thing to do as well. So again, I think we need to have more conversations with younger people around
working on their emotional fitness and flexing that emotional fitness as much as they flex in the gym. It's very important. Understanding that it's not necessarily one way. There are lots of programs available online with people I'm sure are qualified in their own way, but it could be a weekend course for all we know, and a certificate on the wall, and people are willing to hand out their hard-earned money for what they presume to be the quick fix. They put their faith in people that aren't necessarily bona fide. I mean, you have the background, you can talk, you can guide us. Not necessarily every personal trainer can, and with due respect to their practice and their business, it probably would be wise for anybody who's going to involve in this to get a second opinion, to look around, to inform themselves. Research is research. Make sure they understand that they're not just taking on board one part of the program at the expense of another.
Yes.
So the connection, again, to go back to your idea of the wholeness and speaking to people about these things, that's what we're all about on the Síle Show. We're about the conversations that encourage reflection, connection with self, and then the conversations that will stay with you. So being your own conversation concierge, going off and asking yourself, how do I feel after I eat that food? So somebody said to me recently, a man in his 20s and well-established, fit, healthy, well, great life, but just feeling quite fatigued and really down in himself, actually, when we did a little bit of work on it. But also commented that maybe he's lactose intolerant, and he no basis for that other than the fact that he had a cereal that morning and felt exhausted afterwards. So I just sat with that for a moment and I thought, okay, we have to do a nutrition talk here, So the sugars, even in the everything with the protein halo people buy and pay big money for, but it's full of sugar.
Yes.
And then people's insulin is spiking and then crashing. So this is the fatigue. And they're crashing at 11 o'clock in the morning and not understanding why, and perhaps calling into one of the many coffee shops on every corner now and getting, I don't even know what, vanilla blonde with a, an add-on and an add-on and an add-on. I mean, the length of an order for just a coffee nowadays, it's a science. It's a science, but it's all sugar.
Yes, this is it. And I think we tend to go through waves, don't we? I mean, in the 80s and 90s, because it's really tough being a teenager now, but it was tough in the 90s as well. And we had the Kate Moss image, the super thin image that, I could never get to myself. And I mean, we had, buying, super low calorie drinks to drink, and that whole business of the labeling of light as an LITE or diet this, diet that. If you buy something with diamonds, it's fine. It's either full of fake sugar or it's just full of other ingredients that are not going to do any good and are going to spike your insulin anyway, and you're going to have that crash as well. So it's great now that we do know more about nutrition. But as you said, Sheila, it's so important that people are going to somebody, a nutritionist who's qualified, to look at and it's, I don't know why we shy away from that whole food piece, that conversation, because it's so important. It's something that I haven't done until lately, to be honest. It's something that I have struggled with for a number of years. But, preparing and buying and eating food is one of the most important things that you'll do for yourself in your day. We need food to survive, but we need to be eating the right food. And especially, I suppose we always look at America as an obesogenic environment. It's got lots of donuts and it's got lots of fast food. But we're there in Ireland, I feel. We're there in Ireland, and I'm looking at schools, and sometimes, they'll sell donuts, or, they'll eat, chicken rolls and things that are not good for them, or super processed breads, for example. And, I feel so sorry. And again, because we didn't grow up in an environment where there was availability of that type of food. So, we have kids now who have money, so they have some spending money, whereas we didn't, and they have this food. And as you said, Sheila, it's the self-examination piece. It's really difficult. I find it difficult. I struggle with it all the time. But being able to look and take that space to take a breath, take a pause and say, okay, I'm feeling a little bit now flat. What's gone on here? And having the honest conversation with yourself to say, you know what? I didn't go to bed last night in time. You know what? I haven't drank any water this morning. I prioritised watching, I don't know, something daft on TV. And I haven't done my water. I haven't done my walk. I haven't, I haven't slept properly. And it's keeping those pillars. We call them in our house the pillars. It's you cannot outrun a bad night's sleep. No amount of coffee will create that back for you. So it's about getting that sleep hygiene ready. It's about getting your routine down, getting into bed on time, having a nice environment when you're doing it, no matter where you live. And it's about getting the right food in, taking that time to do that.
On the Síle Show, we are so proud to champion resilience, confidence and well-being. How we see ourselves stems from how we care for ourselves, from the inside out and from head to toe. That's why the Síle Show is proudly sponsored by Aleve Skincare. For over 90 years, Aleve by the Gardner Family Apothecary has been creating and manufacturing clean, sensitive formulations that really work on sensitive, reactive skin, including eczema, dermatitis, psoriasis, and rosacea-prone skin. Aleve for clear, hydrated, healthy, and happy skin. Vegan, cruelty-free and sustainable skincare made in Ireland since 1934. Visit aleveskincare.com to learn more. And right now, listeners to this podcast can enjoy an exclusive 10% off at aleveskincare.com with the code Sheila10. Don't miss out.
Drinking your water and just being generally healthy, and that will help every part of your body as well.
Of course, and it'll be reflected in your glowing skin. Of course it will.
Yes.
Because apart from anything else, it's the self-care program that you can't fail with. You're just taking your time and having that conversation. I love that you said that. I think that's so important. Asking the right questions of yourself.
Yeah.
Because we actually have a part of our brain that manages to push all the noise out. When we ask a direct question and we answer a direct question, all the other information falls away until we answer that question. The reticular activating system is in our brain for that reason. So it's amazing. So if you just take the time, look in a mirror, catch your eyes, catch your own gaze, look at yourself like you love yourself and sit with it for a while, because it can take a while. We can glance away, it's uncomfortable, particularly if we're struggling with skin that we're not, of course, and skin that is blemished. So we, I often chat with people who say, well, I can't, falsify that one. That would be toxic positivity. No, it wouldn't. Not from the vantage point of you don't have to have the clear skin to feel beautiful, because beauty begins on the inside and the excellence that you can achieve. So the you excellence, it's about your experience. We talk about customer experience and customer service excellence. Well, this is the you excellence, and it's the service to self from within. And it starts with falling in love with yourself and asking those questions. What need am I really feeding here? If I go to the larder and a sugary cereal is what I choose.
Absolutely.
It's a quick fix. And in that very moment, the spike of insulin will settle the nerves in your tummy, because that's what anxiety is. We have anxiety ancestrally, so that we'll get up, get out and find food to feed the tribe. And we still operate out of the same ancestral neural pathways. So if we can just have that emotional conversation with ourselves, what need am I feeling? Feeding? Am I lonely? It's Saturday night, I'm not out. Am I really feeding FOMO with the crisps here? If I could flip that and decide, joy of not being out. I wouldn't like to be out on that crazy wild night where I won't get a taxi till 4 o'clock in the morning and, I'm tired and I don't have the money to spend. And so reframe it and check in with yourself. What need am I feeding? It won't always be a genuine hunger. Ghrelin won't necessarily be calling. We'll just pretend that what we're feeling is the satisfaction of ghrelin. So to come back to helping people that are listening to understand where they can access that help if they can't afford to go to a psychotherapist, to have that conversation. If they're spending all of their money on the PT online, for example, and now they realise after listening to us that, oh my goodness, maybe that's not the way to do it. How do they turn this around, that juggernaut around their, say, late teens, early 20s, mid 20s, not feeling confident, in fact, pretty low self-esteem? How do we bring the psycho-dermatology piece into a very accessible place for them?
I think what you said was so interesting, Sheila. And like in the role that I am in now, we're talking about something called trauma-informed care. So we are, it's asking that question of, so for example, if I'm feeling like, if I'm working, say, in a shop, somebody comes into me and starts really being abusive. And this is happening a lot now. I mean, people that work in public service are getting abused, whether they're in the airport or the hospital, whatever it is. And instead of saying, oh my God, what's wrong with him? What is wrong with him? He's acting so, rudely. It's what happened to you. What has happened to you that you are coming in and you're bringing all this energy and, bringing all this drama, let's say. It's something, around, and we were discussing this recently, it's around this concept called ACEs. So it's that average childhood events that people experience. I think for people who are listening or watching us now, thankfully, some people won't experience this. So, a death of a parent, mental health issues in the family growing up, an abusive situation, or, a really, really bad divorce or separation or an absent parent. And the huge number of people that live beside us in our communities that experience not just one, but several of these adverse childhood events. And, if that's not dealt with, they will show up with the poor physical health, with every aspect of poor physical health, including diabetes and, heart disease, depression, addiction issues. So again, that trying to have the drink, have the burger, have the chips or whatever it is to push down the vagus nerve, to flip up the dopamine, even temporarily, just to get the release from the thoughts of the trauma that's happened in the past. And if we can, as a community of people, become more trauma-informed, us all, to know that some people have come through an absolutely terrible time. Some people have come through the worst time from war-torn countries or from absolutely desperate things. But some people have also come through trauma, and it could be your neighbour living right beside you. So that's what's going on for people. And Sheila, when you talked about the self-examination piece, I think culturally that can be difficult for us in Ireland, because I think we grew up with phrases like, well, who do you think you are? Or, if you were looking in the mirror, it's like, oh, but don't you love yourself? Oh, you love yourself, don't you? Well, yeah, I do actually love myself. That's really a good thing if I do love myself. But we were, I suppose, brought up, and I'm in my mid to late 40s now, we were brought up to be, what would I call it? That it was a good thing not to be too confident. You shouldn't be too confident. So for us as people, that were brought up in that way, to practice self-love is very difficult. It's very difficult to start, to go into your bathroom mirror, to put the hand on the mirror, to touch the mirror and say, Selene, good morning. You were loved. You deserve to be here, and you deserve to take up space. When you're in the space of feeling very low, I think you have to start, first of all, recognizing that you are, admitting to yourself that, yes, I have low self-esteem, low confidence, and admitting to yourself, I deserve to take up space. I really think if you can start to have these conversations, if you know somebody that you love is feeling like that, we don't tend to go to the GP because we think we're going to waste their time. Again, this is more of the low self-esteem, the low self-confidence. We don't want to go to the GP. We feel we're going to be wasting their time. Pull myself together. Come on, get going now. You're going to be fine. Or have a glass of wine tonight. You're going to be fine. And that is unhelpful. Starting to admit that, you might have a problem with confidence, and picking up that phone, making the appointment with your GP and having the conversation, because our healthcare professionals want us to feel better.
Of course.
That's what we're here for. That's what we're getting paid to do. And more so, we want you to feel better and we want connection.
Of course.
So, you know, if somebody is in a low space, it's really important that they reach out. It's really important to go to their healthcare provider and have that conversation with them. And always know you can bring somebody with you. I think that's really important. We're talking about appointments as well. Bring somebody with you. A lot of, again, I'm not trying to generalize Irish people, but I know because I've looked after Irish people for so long that people can get really nervous when they come in for appointments and they feel they're in a hierarchical state and that, you know, oh my God, I'm really wasting his or her time, or, you know, they're so busy here and I don't want to, you know, load more onto them. But it's really important that, you know that this is your time. You're meant to be here and you deserve to take up space. And bring your notepad and your pen with you. Write down the questions that you want to ask, because when we're in that space, we can kind of start to back out and think, oh, I don't want to tell him or her that I'm actually feeling a little bit low and I'm low self-esteem and I've low confidence. For younger people, it's really important that they get to be familiar with their GP, with the health provider, and with their nurses. So get used to, or if you have a teenager, get them used to going in, having that conversation. It's really important that they do that they have a relationship with their healthcare provider, because they are young adults and they're going to be leaving home and they need to be able to go in and make those appointments and have those conversations. And again, from a calm point of view and thinking about that trauma-informed care piece of when you get into such a flap, sometimes when you start shouting, you know, attitude and behaviour reflects each other. So Síle, if I came, not that I could be anyway, but absolutely feeling amazing in your wonderful studio here today. But if I came into you, Síle, and I was worked up, hyped up, if I was shouting and my voice was louder like this, and you will, some will not you because you're your wonderful self, but you could react and mirror that back to me. And then I start getting higher and higher. And, you know, there's never a good outcome to that.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's about practicing that, how I communicate with people, how I show up, how I present myself, and how I get my message across. And if you are traumatized, it can be very hard to keep calm and to get your message across. And we also, and again, I have to mention my colleague, Ken Hogan, and everybody that works with me in Síle, and my wonderful director, Dr. Teresa Donnelly. She's amazing and she's really spearheading this whole trauma-informed care piece. But we talked about communication, and that only 7% of communication is verbal. So actually what we're doing here, that you can see us talking, it's 7% are just words. The rest is my demeanour, my body language, how I showed up today, how I presented when we met, and we big hug, and we had talked on the phone, but actually seeing you in person is so much better, because, you know, I can read you, you were reading me, and it's such a wonderful experience. So again, you know, when we had that couple of years where we were kind of locked down and we weren't seeing each other in person, you mentioned connection is so important. It's so important. And our skin is that point of connection to the rest of the world.
Of course it is. It's the window to your soul. And it is definitely the last point of contact from the environment, and it's the last point of contact from the inside out.
Yes.
So it's kind of the river of change, really. When you need to change something without, you probably need to change a lot within.
Yes.
Because as you think, feel and act is your personality, and that's informing your personal reality. So if your personal reality is one of sadness and you're feeling glum and fatigued and you're just not at the party, there are probably lots of very practical things you need to do, like get up, get out, get moving, catch your early morning sunlight and your evening sunlight, as much sunlight during the day as you possibly can. We understand now that vitamin D, as it was formerly known, is not even a vitamin. It's actually a parahormone, and that it's engaging with the sun to give us what we need. Vitamins, on the other hand, we can't get them from our food, so we need to supplement, and we understand things better now. I'm very interested in the adverse childhood experience part of skin. I think everything is in thirds. We chatted about that briefly. The rule of thirds, I'm a great believer in it. And obviously those formative years, and perhaps intergenerationally, cross-generationally, DNA, genetics, environment, those early years, those first 1,000 days apparently are huge in setting children up for failure or for success. But as we said, all is not lost. That's your power, not your kryptonite. Because you then realise, if you possibly can, that in your adolescence, you're going to experience so much change that which happened then could perhaps come back, and you might chase demons, chase dragons to mute whatever noise is there that you don't understand. And it's a huge part. And I understand the Gabor Mate piece, what happened to you. I mean, I love it. I'm going to take that and raise you one, given my practice.
Yes.
In my clinic, I actually work at that level with people. People are addicted to so many things to numb the pain. And not least, anger, sex, porn, promiscuity, anything for the quick fix, the inflection of dopamine. It's a really difficult and challenging downward spiral. It's a rabbit hole every time. All the obvious ones, you know, smoking weed, drinking to excess, recreational drugs, drug taking in general, hard drugs, all the things. They're honestly the obvious ones. You know, we've near enemy, far enemy of what you really need to fix. I work with that idea of what happened to you. It's a great place to start. I find, though, not least in the Mel Robbins, and by the way, huge respect for Mel Robbins' era of let them, people are weaponizing let them. They're so looking forward to hanging on to their trauma. Even though we have a trauma-informed world now, we need to help people to reframe and to really show up for themselves with radical self-honesty and pare it back and peel it back, like we're doing with our skin, to realize that actually it's what did you do next? That's always my question. I can take small bites of the elephant and somebody can take me by, well, you know, this happened to me, and they're weaponizing the Gabor Mate piece. That was amazing when we had it. It's a bit like CBT. It was great when we had it, but now we know better. And when you know better, you do better. But what did you do next? I mean, when I was in my teens, I mean, you know what, I felt on the outside, I had window pain, and I was watching the party, but I wasn't really there. I always felt alone. I felt different. I totally get that. It's real. There's so many people that are empaths and codependent, and that they're the people that are speaking to you if that's the language they use. But what did you do next? Yeah, well, then I did all the time fielding the responsibility that whenever they're ready to take it and step into their own story, then they can breathe and begin to enjoy the change that's coming. And it's limitless. But the limited thinking of what happened to you has been weaponized. I actually think we're moving through that, Selene. I really do.
I agree completely. And I know when I started learning about adverse childhood events first, I was thinking, oh my God, have I damaged my kids? You know, oh wow, this is it. Like, you know, it's a terminal diagnosis, but it is not. It's definitely not. It's that piece of, and you said Mel Robbins, let them, but let me. Well, okay, this happened. So now what you going to do? Another colleague of ours, Donna McGee, talks about that all you need is one good adult. One good adult. You can have all the aces, but if one good adult will there and show up for you, you're going to be good. You're going to be good if you take that. I totally agree. You know, we can all, and I've done it myself. When I'm divorced and remarried, first of all, like when I got divorced, and the shame of it, you know, was just so, I just couldn't, you know, I couldn't hardly live with it. But I used to kind of use the whole, I'm a single mother and my kids, well, I think it's hilarious because like right up until recently, I'm a single mother. You know, I said, I'm a single mother. And it was almost said in looking for sympathy. I'm looking for sympathy. Another great quote I heard before was, you go and you pay your therapist, to treat you, and you tell them, and they'll say, they will come to you. It will, you will know what to do. But your best friend is there, who is that person you're saying, you're right, you never do anything wrong. They'll agree with you all the way to the nightclub, all the way to the bad decisions, and they'll support all your bad decisions because they want to support you. And that's not helpful. It's that self-actualization. It's that chat to yourself to say, okay, this has happened, but what am I going to do now? And what's my lived reality? That piece around, you can have the house full of bad food, and at the end of the week you can say, God, I haven't lost any weight, but I haven't really eaten anything. But you have, but you can't admit it to yourself, and you can live your entire life in denial. You can live your entire life in denial, and there won't be a good outcome to that. If you don't have that conversation with yourself, but it's not easy. I love that piece though about the one good adult. I think that gives hope. I think as well, that whole conversation, I remember we were talking about Mel Robbins, she spoke recently about the whole thing of kind of shutting everybody out. If somebody has slighted you or you don't get on with people and you just think, okay, I'm not ever going to speak to you again. And I think as a society, we could be becoming more like that. That it's like othering people. So you don't agree with me. That's it. You know, I'm not going to speak to you again. And that's tough because none of us are perfect.
No, they're not. We're not. And the other thing, that's an adverse adult experience happening there. And, you know, there's space for that in the trauma-informed conversations that we're having now as well. Adverse adult experience is real. You know, relationships that don't work out. Really difficult to meet a romantic partner nowadays. The model has changed completely. And people are lonely. And they're not even necessarily lonely because they're on their own. Before that even happens and they get to feel that or get to have that conversation with themselves, they're lonely because that's not the model that the couple's world expects you to be in. So before they even get, it's the skin deep part. You know, it's the environment is pushing them into that place of feeling left out, not the same, before they even get to feel, well, you know, because sometimes people are actually okay not being in a relationship. But then they watch outside and they realise, oh, but they're not going to really receive me the same because I'm not in a partnership. And I think if we can help people, even when they look at their skin, use their skin, even people who don't have very obvious skin conditions to cope with, our skin is always telling us a story.
Absolutely.
It's completely responding to the world around us all the time. If you've had, you mentioned you didn't have a Chinese meal, for example, until you moved to Sligo. You know, but if you've had a Chinese meal, you will have puffy eyes the next day.
Oh, absolutely.
You'll have puffy fingers. Your rings probably won't fit.
You
know, and okay, so, you know, you go to a different restaurant the next time and they don't have the MSG and but you're still going to be, you know, you'll have that bloated tummy. You'll have a very uncomfortable, not so pleasant gas and all of the things. They're signs and signals. That's a phone call from the other side. This is not what I intended for you down there. If you weren't going to be foraging for just some kind of mushrooms, not all kind of mushrooms. You know, you need to be very careful, mind how you go.
It's so interesting. But it's at that, I have to say, you know, and I hate when people say they should be teaching this in schools because I think schools are overburdened with trying to educate our children. I do think we have to take responsibility for some of ourselves and try and open ourselves out to new ideas. And the great thing is now we do have access to a lot of this information. But it's that piece again, Sheila, of actually having that conversation with yourself and saying, you know what, I'm just going to ignore that my tummy's bloated. I'm going to just say, you know what, my vagus nerve was soothed by that. And I am bloated now, but I'll take the soothing of the vagus nerve over. I don't want to do, Father Brian Conway talks about, our hospital chaplain talks about looking at the shadow side. I don't want to look at the shadow side because if there's noise over here and there's lots of stuff going on here and I can soothe my vagus nerve and I can boost my dopamine by having that Chinese, that drink, that wine, that drug, whatever it is, the choice that I'm using, I don't have to look over here at that shadow side. And as you said, you know, that whole adult experience that we're having now, the rule book has changed, the script is different. It's not like it was even 10 years ago now for people. And again, and I love my social media and I love going on social media, seeing different things like yourself, obviously, in your page, Sheila. But I have to say, you know, even things like marriages, you know, what's a weekend, date nights now? I mean, do we have to call them date nights? Can we just not go out? Or, you know, the pressure of actually having a picture perfect dinner, a picture perfect marriage, a picture perfect wedding, you know, the pressure of this looking a certain way for your wedding. And I've, over the years, many people have got married brides would come to me and say they were absolutely, and of course get a flare of acne just before the wedding because they're stressed, or their eczema flares because they're stressed. And it's a tough world out there now. It's tough for people.
It is. There's a big crash after that dopamine, even because the wedding nowadays, if you go with that model, is so expensive. There's such a lead up to it. It happens then, like everything that goes up has to come down. And if you don't manage the come down together and have those trauma-informed conversations at your dinner table or when you go for dinner, you know, I happen to like the phrase date night. I know it became a bit of a bumper sticker for a while and it was probably Americanized and it felt like it had to be thrown out. I like the idea of date night. I like the idea of date night with your friends as well, whether it's couples or girlfriends or male friends or male and female or female and female and male, whatever is our presentation of choice on a given evening. I love the idea of making it a date night, a day in the dark. We really make it specific, make it bespoke, and very genuinely pass the baton around the table if there are three couples. You know, Selene, what's going on for you?
Yeah.
Sheila, what's going on. And one at a time, structure. And bear with me, it might sound quite curated and, analysis paralysis. It's actually not, because what happens is then, particularly if people are having a glass of wine and, the sillies can start.
Sure.
If you have a little bit of structure, you really feel uplifted the next day. We raise each other up when we see each other, hear each other, value each other. And in conversation that matters, when you ask the right questions, that happens. It's like, meditation over a meal, really, because it's beautiful, rather than the sillies and the,
superficial conversation, or maybe one person that's dominating the conversation.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, what would you think, Sheila, about, say if you're neurodiverse and you find you get social anxiety in that kind of setting, and connecting with people is so important. We know that. We've got the blueprint now for that. Yes. We know what it's like to be separated. So say if somebody had difficulty or really gets the flutters when they think, oh my God, I'm going to the restaurant now, I'm going to have to talk. What am I going to say? What would you advise people in that context?
I work with that quite a lot. I was a teacher for 30 years and I had the absolute pleasure of having some experience, not a lot, but some experience in a centre for autism and some of the training that went with that. So, and now in my practice, I meet a lot of people who have ADHD, ADHD, all the labels. Now, I have to admit, when they come with the labels, I really ask them to hang them up with their coat on the hall stand, if they're okay with that. Sometimes people like to keep their coat on, they're a bit chilly till we start.
Yeah.
Equally, they might like to wrap up in their labels. I like to think by the end of our session, they'll peel them off one at a time and just experience themselves in that moment, even if only in that moment, not in the big bad world, without their label.
Yeah.
They're safe. It's a psychologically very safe place. I can always promise them that. And they're in charge. It's patient-led or client-led. So if you're struggling with a social environment, if you feel that it causes you anxiety, until you're ready for it, don't do it, because there isn't only one way.
Yeah.
That's one way of answering your question. If you feel, however, that that's where you want to be, prep yourself. So allow yourself to be in the driving seat. I always say, I'm showing my age, I love the Doors, keep your eyes on the road and your hands upon the wheel. I say it all the time,
Yeah.
I overuse it. But it's so true. Stay in lane. If you want to go to a restaurant and be amongst people, if you want to go to a pub and be amongst people, prep yourself. Prep yourself for, know who you are. Are you introvert? Are you extrovert? Are you introvert with really good social skills? Are you introvert with very poor social skills? Are you introvert whose battery will go flat quite quickly? Are you introvert whose battery will go flat on different days within different periods of time, depending on the company you move into? It's a bit like your mobile phone. There'll be days when you've a nice new mobile phone, but by 12 o'clock the battery is, because you've been on it all morning or checking messages or whatever, and then other days you've a full battery. By bedtime you don't need to plug it in.
Yeah.
And I just think, know yourself. Again, the conversation concierge. Have the conversation with yourself. How am I feeling? Show up for yourself. Look in the mirror. Catch your own eyes in the mirror. When was the last time I'm looking right into your eyes now, and I know you're thinking, and our energy is merging, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. You said when we met, we had that lovely energetic experience.
Yes.
We're all energy.
Yes.
Everything is energy. The rest is an illusion. So check in with your own energy. Sometimes in relationships, people think they do a lot of chatting, but really they're like, the Liverpool supporters, they're shoulder to shoulder. They're not actually looking at each other. You might have your meal every day together, but it could be at the breakfast bar, shoulder to shoulder, with the telly on. That's not intimate.
Yeah.
You're missing a trick. Practice looking at your own eyes, catching your own gaze, softening the gaze. Say nothing. Watch how your face changes when you do it. Fall in love with yourself. It's a beautiful thing. I always consider The Matrix, I don't know if you've ever seen that film, to be a documentary more than a film. Did you ever see it?
No, never.
I love it.
Yeah.
Love it. And I feel that if you watch it, I don't want to do spoiler alerts now, but I will say love is the red pill.
Yes.
That's all I'll say.
Okay.
And I encourage you maybe to watch it. It's a really good, it's a documentary.
Yes.
And don't throw the baby out with the bathwater when you start watching and say, oh God, I haven't a clue what Sheila was on about. This is nuts, I can't. Just bear with, and go in with an open heart and an open mind. And then say to yourself maybe at the end, do you know what? Love is the red pill. When you're in love, when you met your lovely partner
Yeah.
and you were moving house and buying house and so excited and all the things, we chatted about that.
Yeah.
The high off you, I could feel it. It actually raised me. It was
yes.
beautiful. Can you fall in love with yourself that much? If you're the person who can't go out and mingle, you're not loving yourself.
Yes.
Start there.
Yeah.
It's a nice, gentle place to start. And it's a practice, not a mandate. You're not going to, the same way you don't fall head over heels in love with Mr. Right. He's Mr. Right now for a while, you know, and he has to play it right, like Call You Jackie O.
Yeah.
To get over the... you know, and who knew you'd have your second honeymoon on the Síle Show?
There you go.
Who knew?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful part of the evolution of us. We have neuroplasticity, how our brains change in response to experience. So if we do things differently, the world relates to us differently because we're relating differently to the world. So if you're struggling with the social space, be gentle on yourself.
Yeah.
Don't push yourself into that. That's only one way. There are many ways to wash the ware.
Yes, and to be social. What you said, Sheila, was so important, and it's a lesson that I didn't learn until I met my husband, Liam. To be perfectly honest, I love love. I love everything girly and feminine, and love and stories. And I'm a Disney person, and I love all that wonderful stories. And to me, if you told me, I'm very, I suppose, visual and kind of verbal. If you told me I'm the best thing ever, and you're wonderful, you're amazing, you're a princess, oh my God, but you could be the kind of person that could tell me, but actually not follow through and do the thing you said you're going to do. I remember when I met Liam, he's very direct. And he doesn't do any, he taught me the most valuable lesson in my life, to tell the truth. And that's really hard. And he is very raw telling the truth. So he doesn't shine it up. He just says it as it is. And I remember, I think, oh my God, I said to him, we were maybe 3 or 4 months in, and I said, my God, you are raw with the truth. And he said, Selene, I don't have to remember lies. I just live. I know that what I've said is the truth, and I don't have to start doubling back and thinking, what did I say to this person, that person? He goes, it's easy. It's easy. And I remember he just literally did this. It's really easy.
Yeah.
It makes it so easy for me. And I remember thinking, oh my God. So this is, like, I'm telling the story. He'll know I'll tell the story. I remember we were about 3 months together, and I said, I got all done up. My hair was brand new. My makeup was done. Everything was feeling really good. New dress, everything. And we were at dinner, and I remember saying to him, is there anything you'd change about me? And the correct answer was, no, there is nothing I'd change about you, because you are perfect. But what he said was, well, you talk an awful lot and you wear a lot of makeup, but I really like you anyway. And I thought, oh my God, what did he just say to me? Oh, my mouth fell open. And he said, oh my God, because he realised that actually I wasn't seeking an answer. It was a rhetorical question, or the answer should have been, no, you're perfect. And so we laugh about that now. And, but, the ease of being with somebody who doesn't, of falling in love with somebody who tells the truth, but also does what they say they're going to do. But that piece, the heavy lifting piece, and that piece that we talk about, going into the shadows, is that falling in love with yourself. And that's not easy. And I'm really still working on that. I'm certainly only, I feel, beginning. And it's taken me this long to come to this point and say, okay, you need to look at that shadow side. You need to examine yourself.
Yeah.
And you need to, but I really believe, Sheila, it can be a difficult concept for us to do. My husband was born in America and grew up there for some part of his life. And I think the culture differences, that they do that truth telling a little bit more, that they are more able to do that, whereas we're a little bit more wily and a little bit more, I suppose, suppressed as well. You could say, empty vessels make most noise. I heard that when I was younger, So it's a difficult thing to do, but it can change your life completely, I feel. It can change your life completely.
It's quite the elixir, I would feel. I think some people have something really quality to say, and some people just like to say something. So that's the difference between being verbose, but coming from a vantage point of salutogenesis. You want to make a positive change, versus the person who's constantly complaining or, or vain. There is a very big difference. She says as she straightens her tiara. We love to be loved, and we love to be beautiful. And Disney, you must love my set. It's just gorgeous.
Yes, it's stunning.
Shout out for James and the guys. It's
fabulous.
Isn't it gorgeous?
Yes,
and there's a reason
fabulous.
for that. There's a big reason for that, and it is all in the beauty and self-care space. But I love the fact that you're able to share that story to help other people to realise that, say, for example, you referenced, I had a first chapter in a very special relationship. I've had children. I am having a second chapter. Some people are together for 50 years and they're bloody miserable.
Yes.
Some people are brave enough to manage to find the exit language, and that's not easy either.
Really tough.
That's a learnable skill.
Yeah.
Quality exit language is really important, even if you've long since left your partner, to then go back over it and have that conversation with yourself and find the exit language. It's never too late to put down the emotional stuff. That's what you reference in terms of the exiled self that's in the shadow. So it's never too late to release the exiled self of that relationship from the shadow 10 years later, 15 years later, by identifying the right exit language, and if we can help our youngsters to do that.
Oh my God, that's so important. I mean, whether they're in a long-term relationship, a marriage, or just dating somebody and they have the realization that, this probably isn't working out, the self-actualization, and then being able to verbalize that. That's difficult.
Huge. And that actually is affecting their skin positively or negatively as well. So say, for example, in relation to the stress of a relationship that isn't healthy, an insecure attachment, maybe one or other partner practicing jealousy. And it is a practice. Not understanding that, in fact, that's a low self-esteem. That's a lack of, being seen, heard and valued. But it's equally very injurious to the relationship. And it could result in somebody being unfaithful. It could result in, whether people are going out with each other or married, you can be unfaithful by intent or unfaithful all the way, and it's equally hurtful. But we have to, the only person we can change is ourselves, though. And we have to take responsibility and step into that story and see, even as the part of that breakup, where was I in that?
Yeah.
Because that's my question. What did I do next? What did I do? What am I going to do next? Okay, what happened to you? But what am I going to do next? Because if I revolve in that story, I never evolve out of it. I might get a new circumstance. I might be in a new chapter. I've turned a page. But I'm the same person.
Yes.
Still complaining, still sad, still holding myself back. And it's going to happen again until I make the changes. That's your power, not your kryptonite. I can. Because I am the only thinker in my own brain. So I can think it differently. What would you say to these stressors, which are outside in, and how we respond to them then engages the alarm system, the stress system, and the cortisol, and all the stuff that then comes out in our skin?
Yep.
People losing hair. I've experienced so many people recently, because of their levels of stress, that are losing their hair, and their skin is really poor, and never was perhaps when they were younger. So maybe caring for an elderly parent, maybe going through a breakup, maybe children who are really challenging, gorgeous children that you love and adore and will love and adore forever anyway, but there comes a time, a period sometimes, where children are really difficult to like. The relationship breaks down.
Yes.
People are suffering. People are losing hair. People are, and it would be stress-related hair loss. Can we help them?
It's difficult to, sometimes there's many types of hair loss as well. So again, the really important thing is to, at a fundamental level, go to your GP to be seen by a dermatologist, a specialist who can look at, in this case, say hair loss, because again, there are many variants of hair loss. Some of them could be stress related, some of them not, and there could be treatments for that. But again, that holistic piece of caring for yourself. And I think fundamentally at some level, and especially if we're talking here about a parenting role, we need to have, I suppose, a red line where there's basic things we need to do for ourselves. And again, as women, it's wonderful because we have equal rights and, we're in the workplace and that's fabulous. But we do a lot of work. There's only so many hours in the day and there's only so much energy that you have. And at some stage you have to say to yourself, listen, I'm a mother of two, I'm a full-time worker. And, and then you can be that crux of life, having elderly parents you're caring for and you're worried about, and then having children who may be challenging as well. You can have financial issues going on. So there has to be a red line on the floor, effectively, to say, listen, I need to get my X amount of sleep per night. I need to have a routine where I'm feeding myself. I need to have a space where I can have some downtime as well. But from a very fundamental level of, say, skincare, for example, we can get caught up with, very, huge routines in skincare, for instance, that aren't effective or can actually be damaging to the skin. So it's really important that when we are at, say, if we're the person we're talking about, say, is somebody in their 40s or 50s, they have children running around, they've lots of responsibility, they work, and they've a limited budget to actually do their skincare. You don't have to spend a huge amount of money. That's really important fundamentally at a very low level. And again, I know I'm so glad to be here today with you, Sheila, and that's because of my friends in ELAV, who I really have a long-term relationship with. We've had such a great relationship over the years. They've been so kind to me personally and professionally in every other way. But, I love their products because they're Irish made, they're vegan, they're pet friendly, but also because they take the science that we know in dermatology and they put it into the products. So again, there's no fragrance within the products and they're suitable for people with sensitive skin. And we know that so many people in Ireland, one in probably 2 or 3 kids will have eczema at some stage. 1 in 5 or 6 adults will have eczema. We have 2% of the population with psoriasis. We know that most of us will experience acne. So in that range, there's something for everybody. The people can afford to buy, that they're not going to break the budget, but you're getting a high quality product that's produced locally.
For sure.
But that's going to be effective for your skin. So if I could say one thing I'd like people to do, will you go into your shower cube, because your lovely sinks, take most of those products that are there out and put them to one side. We use way too many products. And sometimes, especially if we're in a space being busy and we look on TikTok or on some other social media platform, we'll see 3 different types of cleansers. Then you have to do a toner, which I don't like anyway. Then you have to do, a face mask. No, there's nobody in their 40s that's going to do that. And anyway, it's probably not going to be effective or could be damaging your skin. So things like simply known, if you have acne, using things like skin balancing wash and moisturizer. If you have sensitive skin, using something like, the moisturizing wash and the moisturizer, and everything comes in packets together. So it's a one-stop quick shop to get something like that for yourself. And taking that time in the morning and the evening. So again, morning and evening, and you're getting into a rhythm with it. So habit's lovely. I like a habit. And we all like to think we're spontaneous and we're wonderful spontaneous creatures. And really we're not, are we? We do the exact same thing every day. So if you think about your morning routine, I get up out of the bed the same way every day. I go and brush my teeth. That's the first thing I do. And that's just my little habit that I do. And I do the same thing. So I'm running on a kind of an automatic engine. So again, the science looks at this thing called habit tacking. So again, you can just introduce a very quick routine by saying morning and evening, okay, I'm going to brush my teeth. You know what I'm going to do before I brush my teeth every morning? I'm going to use nice gentle face wash. I'm going to put on my moisturizer and I'm going to put on my sunscreen. So I'm a sunscreen queen. I love sunscreen. And whereas it is important to see light, absolutely, but it's important that we do protect our skin as well. Really, really important. We have a high incidence of skin cancer in Ireland, and 90 to 95% is because of UV exposure. So again, getting that routine from March, September of putting an SPF 50 on your face every single day and tacking that onto a habit. And there's something about, we were talking about the importance of the child development. There's something about, we know through science that when a baby is born, the first thing that the midwife does is it puts it on the mum's chest. So that skin-to-skin contact, will immediately soothe that baby, immediately. I remember when my own babies were born and that amazing rush of adrenaline that I had and all those wonderful hormones that were released as well. But that skin-to-skin contact was incredible. I will never forget that moment. It was so important. And that bond was there. So again, for yourself as an adult, if you're having a really bad day, and at the end of that day, you go back into that bathroom and you have your face cloth. It doesn't have to be expensive. You run your water and then you do your cleansing routine and you do your moisturizing and you can massage your own face and it feels great. Yeah. You don't need a tool. You don't need something from a shop, something that's electrical or something that, probably will damage your skin as well. Your own hands, your skin-to-skin contact for yourself, the touch of yourself as well on your own face, and just applying your moisturizer that you're going to rehydrate your skin from the outside in. And again, coupling that with your own self-care, your water. And that's bringing your body into that lovely rhythm of, this is nighttime now, we're relaxing, we're taking off the day and we're relaxing and we're going to clean our skin, we're going to hydrate by moisturizing from the outside in, and we're getting ready for our sleep. It's going to restore us as well. And it's a small little step to do, but it's so important.
It's so lovely. Important. And while you do it perhaps, and you're looking at yourself, take that moment to look for longer. Stay with it, because things will rise when you look at yourself and you're doing that. And if you possibly can, to stack the resources, just jot down 1 or 2 words that rise for you when you take that time to do it. if you possibly can, just put on some binaural beats or something in the background. And I'm not beginning to make it complicated. That is actually still really doable.
Absolutely.
Because we have to cleanse anyway. And tone, I'm interested in the toner piece. I must come back to that now. I want to borrow your brain on that one. But I think it's really important when you're morning to win your day in exactly the same way, but when you're evening to maximize your sleep. We have mind-derived health optimization sitting there waiting to happen when we go to sleep. Absolutely. If we're restful before we sleep though, Selene, because if we go to bed, if you go to bed with your few drinks, you will fall asleep quickly, but it will not be restorative sleep, fact. If you go to bed with all the worries of your day, it will not be restorative sleep, fact. Now, Mother Nature will do her very best to catch those loose threads for you and stitch them up and metaphorically run things through a reality generator so there's some sense of satisfaction to all of the things that you didn't get satisfaction on that day. And you will feel lighter and brighter in the morning, maybe only for nanoseconds though, until you check your phone or check social media and you're right back into the middle of it again. So if you can jot down a few words, I think it's a lovely practice. I encourage it all the time. Just a word wall of the things that happened throughout your day that are bothersome. That's for tomorrow to deal with. So get them down on a page and tell your brain. Now I'm unhooking your responsibility from those things. Don't worry about them. They're sorted. We'll work on that tomorrow. Because otherwise it's kind of like neural overheads. The bills you have to pay when you go into your sleep, and you really want to do some more restorative work in that very helpful sleep space if you possibly can. So I love that, and I hope that people do that after listening to us, because the psycho-dermatology is where it's at, really. It's the elixir. If we can understand as without, within, and as within, so without, just hold it. And the you excellence, you experiencing you to the best of your ability, given whatever circumstances you're in, exactly as you say. It can be cost-free protocols that make the difference. That little walk, that little chat with your pal, or the chat with yourself. I really want to help people not to feel sad and lonely just because they don't have somebody to talk to. A lot of families are very fractious now, and you'd like to always think that you've got a sister on the other line or you've got a brother. We don't necessarily, but we can be our own best friend. And love is the red pill. If you fall in love with yourself, the energy you offer is one of love. So then you're lovable. We're lovable anyway, but lovable to another has to be offered in a frequency before that person can catch it and give us that back. Can I just quickly, and I know I have to let you get away, but can I talk to you about the toner? Because I'm interested, so you don't think we should tone, or is that, would it be the same as exfoliating? Would you recommend we don't?
So two things I don't like is toners. So when you cleanse your skin, and then if you use a toner, which is typically alcohol-based and quite, again, the skin is, especially if it's quite delicate, if you run a toner over your face, you're literally taking off cells, but you're actually stripping the skin of its natural oil as well too much. Now, if you do that and you have acne, you're going to make more sebum and get the worse acne. It doesn't squeaky clean skin, like absolutely, dragging a face cloth or a cotton pad across your skin and cleaning it to within an inch of its life is not a good idea. Using a good cleanser that will clean your skin, and clean your skin, absolutely, but not overly cleaning your skin. The other thing I don't like is the physical scrubs. Those ones we used to use years ago. And just get a Brillo pad. It's the same thing. You're literally rubbing sand across your skin. And again, that rubbing action, that stringent kind of aggressive cleansing or treating the skin can trigger off things, especially if you've got an inflammatory skin disease like eczema, for example, or psoriasis. So not a good idea. You're better off to use a chemical. It sounds awful, but the chemicals are fine, and when we use them properly, a chemical exfoliator. So something like an AHA, BHA, something like that. We use under supervision. Things like retinoids are great at night time because it does, with your sleep, take off the rough stuff. Sure. So retinol is great for taking off the rough stuff, but go under the guidance of somebody who knows what they're talking about, because again, there's been a bit of the regulations kicked in around retinol, which is no harm. Something I've spoken about a lot lately, and we are going to be coming to that time again. There are 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds who are getting skin active ingredients for Christmas. They are producing YouTube videos, doing their 10-step skincare routine. This is really not a good idea, because they're not suitable to use retinoids for. It's the biggest waste of money for a start off, because they're too young to use these products. They're anti-aging products and they are babies, so they do not need to be using them. And again, it's feeding into this whole piece around the body dysmorphia, or leaning into that. I don't want to say everyone has body, they absolutely don't. It's a serious diagnosis. But for young developing girls, feeling they have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to start cleansing, and this whole ritual routine, it's feeding into that kind of a liking routine business is a little bit too much. So again, spending an hour looking in the mirror and critiquing yourself and criticizing yourself, and then putting that up online for more critiquing is really not a good idea. So I would encourage parents, if you're listening, and if you're talking to Santa Claus, please do not let him, but he wouldn't do it anyway, but don't let him bring retinoids to a 10-year-old. Sure. It's not suitable. It's not a good idea. Again, using gentle, but if you're into, and this is a great opportunity to encourage children to use their sunscreen, for example, that's a great idea to get them into that, but not into heavy routines for skincare. Really, really not a good idea. So again, using something gentle, using something, and using our language carefully. So I don't like the whole 10 years younger thing. I don't want to look 10 years younger, because I'm glad to be here and to be this age. And it's that whole feeling my best, and when I do this, I feel like I'm looking my best, the best that I can look in my body, in my skin, that is perfect in its own imperfect way. So it's really important that we're happy with the skin that we're in, with the colour, with the pigment of the skin that we're in. This is the way we are, and to embrace that. Because when we try to push up against that, and we were talking today about something called tanorexia on the Pat Kenny Show. So again, it's that persistent need or want to tan our skin. And again, it's complicated. I mean, people with body dysmorphia can be doing it because they perceive that they're too white, for example, or people who have an issue with their dopamine levels. They're getting the dopamine hit from the tan, from seeing the tan, from actually preparing themselves, from making the booking, from doing that. But we know that some beds are extremely dangerous. We know they cause cancer, and some beds are to skin cancer as smoking is now to lung cancer. They are dangerous. No one should use them. So again, we would encourage people to be sun smart and to be very careful with their skin. And when we talk about skin types, that's a really important conversation as well. So we would grade with Fitzpatrick's skin scale. So again, type 1 are red-haired, green eyes, blue eyes, blonde hair, people who burn easily in the sun. And then it goes right up then to people who are brown eyes, dark hair. But we can have like mixed skin. So I have a Spanish way back in the way, great-great-grandmother, I think, great-great-great-grandmother. And she, of course, came from Madrid. So she was dark. And we, in all my mother's side of the family, are all dark hair and eyes. But our skin is lighter. Yeah. So you can have dark hair and eyes and still burn. But it's important that, that we all embrace whatever skin type we are. And I was reading some work that was on the UK recently, looking at the Fitzpatrick scale and changing that up as well, because we do need to describe and talk more about skin of colour as well. So especially if, say if somebody is living with things like psoriasis or eczema, and you are skin of colour and you have different hair types, you have 4C hair that's really tightly curled. So it's important as healthcare professionals as well that we're more aware of what skin disease looks like in skin of colour, because we want everyone to be included in the conversation about living well in our skin.
For sure, because even seborrheic dermatitis, the pieces of scalp gently falling onto your face, causing then little boils or whatever. If people don't understand that, they might be, what precipitates what is a conversation that needs to be had with somebody who's in the know.
Absolutely.
And able to help the person to unpick it properly, unpack it, check in with their routine and see, is that perhaps what's going on?
Yes.
Or is it happening at the face level or the shoulder level or the back level? It can actually be, particularly in people, as you say, with skin of colour, it can actually be seborrheic dermatitis where the scalp is falling onto the face.
That's right.
Or the shoulder, and their facial skin just can't cope with it. Because the oils aren't the same.
Yes, and there's so many diseases of the skin. Well, actually, there's about 2,000 known skin diseases, but they fall into a few categories. But there's something called hidradenitis suppurativa, it's HS, and it can affect, I think it's about 2% of the population, but it's where you develop almost acne boils under your arms, under your breasts and your groins. And it's a horrendous condition to live with. And it can take 7 to 8 years for people to be diagnosed with HS because they arrive, they have a boil and it slants and that's fine, they go away and this happens again. And it can cause severe depression in somebody who has it. And again, it's linked to, they're maybe ashamed to come present, there's something going on in my groins, I really don't want to see the doctor, I had a bad experience, or I had a bad experience with a nurse maybe, or whatever it is, or my childhood, and I don't want to expose myself and go for treatment. And now there's wonderful treatments for this particular condition that can be really effective. So it's so important that people do get that piece, that they have the confidence, they're having the conversations and they're saying, okay, I'm going to ring the GP. Something's going on here with me right now and I need to go and have that conversation.
I actually, because I was explaining to that, I put some questions out, and that was actually one of the questions that came in. And it was from a male who was concerned about a similar such thing and had been told before that they're benign, not to worry. And he was delighted because he didn't want to do anything about it. So, but listening to your piece then, probably it is something that should be treated. Absolutely. Would I be right in saying? Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, from the point of view, and this is what happens with skin, okay, it's not a terminal diagnosis, okay, this won't, this won't kill you. But, you can be living as a human being with such low self-esteem, with depression, anxiety, because you were looking at the skin, you were feeling. HS is a really painful condition as well. I think we underestimate that for patients living with HS. It can be super painful, and it can go anywhere from small little boils, like little pimples under the arm, in the groins, under the breasts, to wide or like open wounds, effectively, that form together, that form something called sinuses, where they just are open and weeping. And there's an odour from that because this is under your arms, or in your groins, and it can be absolutely debilitating for somebody to have this. There are treatments for it, but again, you have to be your own best friend in the way that you have to go and represent yourself. Go to your GP. A wonderful resource is the Irish Skin Foundation. They're fantastic, and they've got a free helpline number. So if anyone's listening to this or watching us and they're having experience or living with something, they're not sure, they don't know, you ring the helpline number. It's magnificent, and you'll get support for where you are. So you'll get guidance on, listen, go to your GP and here's your local hospital and this is what you can do to help you until you get that appointment. But it's so important if this person, say, texted in or rang you or contacted you to say, could I have this? This is bothering this person.
Yeah, well, it was a message. Sure. And so you're limited, I suppose, in words in that space. But I think when somebody can be anonymous, it's a great opportunity when you know you're going to have a guest and you give the specialist area.
Yeah,
it's a good opportunity because people can say, oh, well, I can throw that at the wall and nobody needs to know.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important just in general. So there's one thing, and, with all of the other 2,000 diagnoses in this area that anybody could be presenting with, the most important thing that we can do today is just normalise it. Have the conversation, give the element of hope. You're not on your own. Many other people have a similar thing to deal with. But what are you going to do next?
Yes.
So handing it back. Here's your responsibility. Responsibility. How do I respond to that? Do I live with it? Do I feel sad and down and never go out? We reference the person who maybe struggles with social circumstances. Is it because of how they feel they look? Is it a low self-esteem thing? Sometimes I have to work with people on, believe it or not, managing their confidence, because it's the trip hazard it's the space between confidence and self-esteem that is the biggest trip hazard for people, really, when there's a very big difference between them. So sometimes people fake it till they make it, to the extent that they're up there all the time. They're exhausted the next day.
Yes.
And really, is the difference between, confidence is a learnable skill. I could play one tune on a guitar, perhaps, and sound great. But if you put me in a session, I wouldn't know any others, and I wouldn't know how to, join in. So I'm confident on my one, but that's by way of example, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm actually a great guitarist. Not. But then self-esteem is a totally different thing. That's how I perceive I'll be received. That's a totally different thing. Confidence and self-esteem are far, far from each other. Far, far from each other. And it's the distance between, from an emotional perspective and a wellness perspective and a bounce back ability perspective, if you hit a low with this, it's the distance between the confidence and the self-esteem that's the hole in the ground. So, if it's a little pothole, you might see it and avoid it or step over it. If it's a big, huge gaping hole and you fall in because you're not watching, it's shocking hard to get out. And the point is, sometimes we're overconfident. But it's fake. And sometimes you can't bring up the self-esteem. You can't get to there from here. So to close the gap a little, work on just settling the confidence piece. Don't always burst into the room like the loudest person. Don't always feel that you have to turn all the heads. Sometimes dial it down a little. And that's managing the confidence. So then the gap between the confidence and the self-esteem isn't so far. And you're sitting with the feelings a little bit there. I was uncomfortable in that circumstance. Why was I? Well, I didn't feel I looked great. My skin wasn't great. Well, then again, I've been eating takeaway food, or I've been drinking the energy drinks, or, I've been overdoing the coffee that has 17 add-ons, and conversation concierge, just ask yourself, how am I feeling? Look at yourself in the mirror when you do it. Catch your own eyes, look into your own soul. And then when you can close the gap between confidence and self-esteem, even though you didn't pull up your self-esteem first, all of a sudden self-esteem is rising because you don't set yourself up for that fall. You're kind of setting yourself up for a little bit more success by not bursting in, by not pretending to be, the Dunning-Kruger thing, surviving on past glories, like I think I'm amazing, everybody else realises I'm not, It's good to just sometimes tame your vanities, and that actually closes the gap between confidence and self-esteem, which inadvertently is saving us, and we can work on raising the self-esteem then. Why did I perceive I'd be received poorly, or the one that people really wouldn't want at their table? Well, because maybe I'm too boisterous and too loud. When I was only doing that to try and fit in. Fit in fatigue is real. You need to have a sense of belonging. And that shines in our skin and our hair and the whole, as you said in the beginning, the wholeness, the whole of us, the whole of us. Selene, I know you have to get away. I'm going to ask you for a parting note. Is there one myth that you'd like to debunk in the whole area of skin health?
I'll give you two very quick ones. When you look at someone online on Instagram, TikTok, it's a curated version of themselves. Nobody really looks like that. So when you look, and you're going to do the exercise, look at yourself in the mirror, don't compare yourself to other people. You are unique in yourself. The second thing I will say is, don't believe all the hype. There is a multi-million euro industry around skincare, and we're on the sell. When you walk into a store that's brightly lit, if you see something online, you see somebody who's influencing it, don't fall for the buy. And sometimes I know people, when they've bought really expensive stuff or an awful lot of products, they get overwhelmed, bamboozled, and they feel kind of a little bit silly because it hasn't worked. Don't feel like that, but just stick to a simple routine, including your sunscreen. So stick to something that's simple for your skin type, including your sunscreen. And if you are living with a skin condition and you haven't done something about it, pick up that phone, ring the GP. He'll be glad, or she'll be glad to see you coming in, and do that piece. Bring a friend, bring a companion with you, write something down and have that conversation.
Amazing. Bring an advocate or advocate really well for yourself.
Exactly.
Selene, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on the Síle Show. You're amazing. Can we follow you on, you said you're on your socials?
Yeah, I am. I'm Selene Daly. That's Selene, just to be awkward. Selene Daly on Instagram. And I'm also on TikTok as well. I know it's a bit indulgent, but I'm also on TikTok there trying to take a little bit of space as well.
Love it. Well, we are definitely going to be following you. They were nuggets that we will not want to put down. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And there you have it. You excellence starts with the you experience. How you move, how you nourish, how you speak to yourself when no one else is listening. Just like in life, how you do anything is how you do everything. Every small act of care writes the story of who you're becoming. So ask yourself, what do you want in life? What do you want from a relationship? Be that. You'll get it back. How do you want to be seen? See yourself as that. How do you want to feel in other people's company? Feel that. How do you want to experience you? Create it. Deliver for you. Because that's you excellence. It's your you experience. How you treat you with consistency, compassion and care becomes your inner atmosphere and your outer reality. And here's the part we so often forget. Excellence isn't perfection. They're different things. Perfectionism kills excellence. Perfectionism is pervasive. It's outside in stuff. It's image obsessed. It's brittle. Excellence is enduring. It's inside out. It's effort-led and rooted in truth. When you chase perfection, you're performing. When you chase excellence, you're becoming. This is where the rule of thirds returns, not just in photography, but in life. The most powerful rituals, like the most powerful images, leave room for space, for breath, for depth. We're not meant to be perfectly centred. We're meant to be composed with a little bit of movement, contrast, feeling. So this week, your gentle task on the Síle Show is to look into your own eyes, not to correct, not to compare, but to connect. Let your morning cleanse, your shower, your moisturising touch be a ritual. Let your intention be louder than your routine. Make space. Stay with you. Witness. Soften. Feel. You excellence, how you treat you. Because how you treat you becomes how you move through the world. Start small. Go deep. Lead from within. You excellence isn't something you earn. It's something you live. And so it is.